Derrick Rose is being sent to the New York Knicks for draft compensation, whatever that means, whether it's a draft pick or swap, I'm not too sure, and Dennis Smith Jr. I think that this is something absolutely great when it comes to Derrick Rose's side. I think New York Knicks is actually a great fit for him and that he can actually find himself playing a bigger role over there. And overall, I believe that this actually made the Knicks better. It seems like the New York Knicks are actually trying to move in the right direction for once, and they actually might start to have a bright future ahead of them with a move like this. Now, it's not to say that they're going to be a championship contender, because of course not, but this is a stepping stone in the right direction. When it comes to the New York Knicks, they have been a complete mess. I don't think they've won a championship in like the last 40 years. So the fact that they're actually starting to rebuild a little bit and they start to seem to have a little bit of youth, you have some great young players over there in New York. And I think that if they can build upon this, especially with additions like a Derrick Rose and maybe another superstar, I don't know, because it is New York, it could be intriguing to some player. They could actually start to move their franchise in the right direction. Before we get into today's video, yo, what is up, guys? It is your boy, and I'm back here giving y'all another banger. And since I'm giving y'all another banger, if y'all could go ahead and drop a like on this video, it'd be much appreciated. And please subscribe if you enjoy basketball content. But of course, I'm here going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons, who have just traded one of their key players, Derrick Rose, for Dennis Smith Jr. Now, before we get over to the Knicks side, because I already kind of touched up on that in the beginning, I do want to say when it comes to the Detroit Pistons, hopefully they're getting a bunch of picks or like a few picks, because this doesn't really make too much sense from their standpoint. I'm not too sure what they were trying to do. Hopefully they're just trying to rebuild it around their young core, because they do have Jeremy Grant and other good players. So hopefully they're just trying to, tank and trying to get good players for the future. So I think that's what they're trying to do right now. I mean, they're already one of the worst teams in the NBA, so it makes perfect sense for them to just I think they're just trying to take the OKC type of method where you just stack up on draft picks and all that stuff, so you can just have a good young core moving forward and try to build around the picks that you have. Or you could trade them later for superstars, but I think they're just trying to build a young core and try to collect draft picks for them. Now, personally, I think that this is great for Derrick Rose. I think that going to New York could actually be one of the best things that happens to Derrick Rose, which is kind of a weird thing to say, because most players who go to New York usually don't turn out all that well. They usually never win anything. But I think that if Derrick Rose goes to the Knicks, it can actually be something that can be seen as a positive for him and something that could be really valuable for his career. I think when we talk about Derrick Rose, the New York Knicks really does fit his personality. A player who got knocked down, of course, because we all know Derrick Rose was one of the bright young stars in the NBA until he had that injury, which really just shattered his career all around. But he did find a way to bounce back from that and find himself as a good role player in the NBA. So as someone who was really at the top and had to rebuild himself all the way back from the bottom, I think that's something that the New York Knicks can look at, and it matches that type of New York grit. Like the personalities between what New Yorkers are, which are people who are very hard-nosed and very gritty, it just matches what Derrick Rose is, because that's who he is. He's always going to work hard and do what he has to do, just like the New York vibe that you get when you go to New York. So personally, I'm very happy when it comes to Derrick Rose going to New York, and I hope that his career does end up being very good over there. And like I said at the beginning, I believe that this is a good move when it comes to the New York Knicks, moving in that direction when it comes to having someone come in. And I think even then, just when it comes to Derrick Rose, he can be a valuable veteran voice when it comes to the New York Knicks, because they do have a bunch of young players like Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett. They do have a great core when it comes to young players over there. So if they were to have a player like Derrick Rose come in, he can provide veteran leadership. He can really teach these guys what they need to do in order to be an NBA player, and maybe learn from the mistakes that Derrick Rose has done throughout his career. I think the New York Knicks are actually starting to do some great things over there in New York as of right now. I think that if they continue to do the things that they're doing and make pieces and make moves, they can actually become a contender eventually down the line when it comes to the Eastern Conference. I do want to say that I am rooting for Dennis Smith Jr. because he has had it rough. I remember when people were saying that in 2017, Dennis Smith Jr. could possibly become the best player from that draft, and that's just not the case. He went from being one of the best players supposedly in the draft to now just averaging around 3 points. I know he's only playing around 9 minutes, but he's only averaging around 3 points. So the fall from grace that Dennis Smith Jr. has had, I really am rooting for him, and I hope that something does go right for him when it comes to Detroit, because for a lot of people, his career is not going the way that they anticipated it going. People thought that Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be the player that Donovan Mitchell is right now. Like when people thought about the draft, that's exactly who they thought he was going to become. So to see that he's not exactly living up to the hype that he had coming into the NBA, it's a little disheartening, but I do hope that he does get it into sorts, and I am rooting for him in this year's season. So from both sides, I think that this was just a good deal, and I hope that Derrick Rose has a surprisingly good season in New York, and I hope that Dennis Smith Jr. has a breakout year, maybe next season, because I think it's a little too soon when it comes to this year. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much. If you listened this far, please drop a like on the video. It would be much appreciated, and please subscribe if you enjoy basketball content, and please check out my other videos because I have plenty on this channel. And without further ado, guys, I am out. Peace.